All right, so someone sent us this cocktail party chemistry,
Oh, yeah.
episode 143,
Okay.
and it's all about glowing gardens. So
Mm.
obviously the listener is as intrigued by glowing plants as I am.
Yeah,
And
that's really cool.
the idea is that plants don't just reflect light,
Uh-huh.
but they actually generate light.
Yeah.
So we're talking engineered luminescence,
Yeah.
not just the bioluminescence you find in nature.
Right.
So let's unpack this episode a little bit and see how scientists are making this a reality.
It's really cool how they're kind of like merging biology and photonics,
Right.
the science of light, to kind of achieve these effects.
Uh-huh.
And the episode highlights 5 key points about this whole field,
Okay.
starting with the concept of chemiluminescent plants.
So not just reflect light,
Right.
but actually producing it,
Exactly.
like a firefly.
Yeah, it all comes down to those little creatures and their luciferase genes.
Mm-hmm.
So fireflies create light through a chemical reaction involving this enzyme called luciferase.
Okay.
And scientists have figured out how to take the genes that code for luciferase in fireflies and insert them into plants.
So we're essentially giving plants
Yeah.
the genetic instruction to make their own firefly light.
It is.
Pretty cool.
It is, and that brings us to our next point, which is sustainable lighting.
Okay.
So imagine gardens and homes illuminated by these glowing plants.
Wow.
You could significantly reduce our reliance on traditional energy-consuming light sources.
That's a bright idea.
Yeah,
But it's not just about aesthetics and energy savings.
right.
The episode also mentioned bioindicators.
Yes, and this is where things get really cool.
Okay.
These bioindicator plants would be designed to glow in response to like specific environmental changes, like if there's pollutants present.
Wow.
So we'd essentially have a built-in warning system
Okay.
alerting us to any potential problems.
So it's like having plants that can talk to us about the health of our environment.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
it has huge implications for agriculture, urban planning, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And underpinning all of this is this rapidly evolving field of genetic engineering.
Right.
Like scientists are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their ability to manipulate genes and introduce new traits into organisms.
Okay, so we've got these luciferase genes. We've got this idea of bioindicators.
Uh-huh.
And it all hinges on genetic engineering.
Right.
Can you break down how scientists are actually putting this all together to create these glowing plants?
Certainly. So imagine a plant's DNA as this complex instruction manual.
Okay.
What scientists are doing is essentially inserting new instructions,
Uh-huh.
in this case, the firefly's luciferase gene,
Okay.
into that manual.
Right.
So these instructions tell the plant to produce the luciferase enzyme,
Right.
which then triggers the chemical reaction that produces light.
So it's like adding a new chapter to the plant's genetic story, a chapter about how to glow.
A very apt analogy.
Okay.
But it's not as simple as copy and paste.
Right.
Scientists have to carefully select the right genes,
Uh-huh.
ensure that they're inserted correctly, and then test whether the plant can actually express those genes and produce the desired outcome, in this case, glowing.
So it sounds like a delicate and intricate process with a lot of trial and error involved.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
But the progress being made is remarkable.
Okay.
So scientists are not only getting better at inserting genes,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also learning how to fine-tune the process.
Okay.
So they're experimenting with different promoters, which act like on-off switches for genes
Yeah.
to control when and how brightly the plants glow.
So potentially we could have plants that glow only at night, providing natural illumination when we need it most?
Exactly.
Wow.
Or imagine plants that change their glow intensity based on the levels of certain pollutants in the environment,
Uh-huh.
providing a dynamic visual indicator of environmental health.
This is all starting to sound like something out of a science fiction movie,
I know.
but this is real science happening right now.
It is, and it speaks to the incredible power of genetic engineering.
It really does.
Like, if we can manipulate plants to emit light,
Uh-huh.
what other fascinating traits could we introduce?
That's a great question and one we should definitely explore further.
Yeah,
But first, I'd love to understand more about the potential applications of this technology.
sure.
We've touched on sustainable lighting, bioindicators,
Uh-huh.
but what other possibilities are scientists exploring?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement is using glowing plants for artistic and design purposes.
Okay.
Imagine glowing trees lining city streets or bioluminescent gardens creating breathtaking nighttime displays.
That's a beautiful image. It seems like the possibilities are truly endless.
They are, and as the technology continues to advance, I'm sure we'll see even more creative and innovative applications emerge.
This is also fascinating, but before we get carried away with future possibilities, I'd love to dig a little deeper into the science behind chemiluminescence. How exactly does this process work at the molecular level, what's happening inside those plants to make them glow?
Yeah, so it's a fascinating process. Remember how we talked about luciferase being an enzyme?
Right.
Well, enzymes are like tiny biological catalysts that speed up chemical
Right.
reactions.
And in this case, it's a chemical react that produces light.
Exactly. So inside these engineered plants, the luciferase enzyme interacts with a molecule called luciferin.
Uh-huh.
And this interaction in the presence of oxygen triggers a chemical reaction that releases energy in the form of light.
So it's like a miniature light show happening within each plant cell.
That's a great way to put it, and the color of the light emitted depends on the specific type of luciferase and luciferin involved.
Okay.
Fireflies, for instance, typically produce a yellow-green light.
And are scientists limited to those colors, or could we potentially create plants that glow in other colors like blue or red?
That's an area of active research.
Oh, okay.
Scientists are exploring different types of luciferases from other bioluminescent organisms, like jellyfish and deep-sea creatures, which produce a variety of colors.
So we could potentially have gardens that shimmer with a rainbow of bioluminescent hues. That's incredible.
It is, but it's important to note that there are still some challenges to overcome
Okay.
before glowing plants become a commonplace reality.
What kind of challenges?
Well, one challenge is the efficiency of the light production.
Okay.
Currently, the light emitted by engineered plants is relatively dim compared to traditional light sources.
So you wouldn't be able to read a book by the light of a glowing plant just yet.
Not quite, but scientists are working on ways to boost the efficiency of the luciferase reaction,
Uh-huh.
potentially by tweaking the genes involved or by optimizing the growing conditions for these plants.
So there's hope for brighter glowing plants in the future.
Definitely another challenge is the longevity of the glow.
Okay.
Currently, most engineered plants only glow for a limited time, often just a few hours.
That makes sense. After all, the luciferin fuel eventually gets used up.
Exactly. So researchers are exploring ways to engineer plants that can continuously replenish their luciferin supply,
Uh-huh.
potentially by incorporating genes from other organisms that produce luciferin naturally.
It's fascinating to see how scientists are drawing inspiration from nature to solve these challenges.
Absolutely, and that brings us back to the incredible potential of this technology.
Yeah,
Imagine a future where glowing plants not only provide sustainable lighting,
right.
but also serve as living sensors monitoring the health of our environment.
Or imagine trees that light up city streets, eliminating the need for streetlights and creating a magical urban landscape.
It's a vision that captures both the scientific ingenuity and the artistic possibilities of this field.
Okay, let's talk about the bigger picture for a moment. We've been focusing on the practical applications,
Right.
but what are the broader implications of this technology? How could glowing plants change our relationship with nature?
That's a really intriguing question.
Yeah.
I think glowing plants have the potential to blur the lines between nature and technology in a way that we haven't seen before.
It's almost like bringing a bit of magic into our everyday lives.
Exactly. Imagine walking through a forest at night surrounded by trees that emit a soft, ethereal glow.
Yeah.
It would be a truly immersive and awe-inspiring experience.
They could change how we perceive nature, making it even more wondrous and captivating.
It could also foster a deeper appreciation for the interconnectedness of life.
Okay.
By incorporating genes from fireflies into plants, we're essentially highlighting the shared genetic heritage that unites all living organisms.
That's a beautiful thought. It reminds us that we're all part of the same intricate web of life.
Precisely, and as we continue to explore the possibilities of genetic engineering, it's essential that we do so with respect for the natural world and a commitment to responsible innovation.
I completely agree. It's a powerful tool that should be used wisely, but it's also incredibly exciting to think about how this technology could shape the future, creating a world where nature and technology harmoniously coexist.
Indeed, it's a future that holds immense potential for both scientific advancement and artistic expression.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey so far. We've delved into the science behind chemiluminescence, explored the challenges and possibilities of engineering glowing plants, and even contemplated the broader implications of this technology. But before we get too carried away with future visions, I'd love to bring us back to the present and talk about the current state of research. Where are we now in terms of actually making glowing plants a reality? What are the latest developments in the field?
Well, research on glowing plants has been progressing really rapidly.
Okay.
In recent years, we've seen some exciting breakthroughs,
Uh-huh.
particularly in terms of increasing the brightness and duration of the glow.
So that's encouraging to hear. We're moving closer to that vision of glowing trees lining city streets.
Yeah, we're definitely making progress.
Okay.
For instance, a team of researchers at MIT recently engineered plants that could glow for several hours
Wow.
after being charged with LED light.
So they essentially act like biological light capacitors,
Yeah.
absorbing light energy and then releasing it slowly over
That's
time.
a good analogy. This approach offers a promising alternative to relying solely on the luciferase reaction,
Okay.
which can be energy intensive for the plant.
So it sounds like a more sustainable approach, harnessing external light sources to power the glow.
Exactly. And another exciting development is the use of nanoparticles.
Nanoparticles, how do those come into play?
Well, researchers have found that by embedding certain types of nanoparticles into plant cells,
Uh-huh.
they can amplify the light emitted by the luciferase reaction.
So it's like adding a microscopic mirror to each plant cell,
Yeah,
reflecting and intensifying the light.
precisely. And this has opened up new possibilities for using glowing plants as biosensors.
Can you elaborate on that? How exactly would these glowing plant sensors work?
So imagine a plant engineered to glow in the presence of a specific pollutant,
Okay.
say heavy metals in the soil. By monitoring the intensity of the plant's glow, we could get a real-time readout of the level of contamination.
So it's like having a living, breathing environmental monitoring system.
Exactly, and because these plants are self-powered, they wouldn't require external energy sources or complex electronics.
Right?
They could be deployed in remote areas or used to monitor pollution levels in urban environments.
The brilliant concept combining the power of nature with cutting-edge technology.
It is, and it speaks to the growing trend of biomimicry, where scientists and engineers are drawing inspiration from nature to solve human problems.
It only makes sense to learn from nature's ingenuity.
Absolutely, and glowing plants are just one example of how we can harness the power of biology to create a more sustainable and harmonious future.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've journeyed from the intricate workings of luciferase to the potential of glowing plants as sustainable light sources,
Yeah,
biosensors, and even artistic elements in our environment.
right.
It seems like we're on the cusp of a truly transformative era in plant science.
I agree. The field is evolving rapidly, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for glowing gardens and beyond.
Well, thanks for joining us on this illuminating exploration of glowing plants. We covered a lot of ground, but this is just the beginning of the story. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us as scientists continue to delve into the mysteries of bioluminescence and genetic engineering.
The possibilities are truly endless.
And for you listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more about this fascinating field. Remember, the world of science is full of wonder and possibility. All we have to do is keep exploring.